Blue Sky just crashed as well.
Did it?
And we are live. We are here with the one and only SF Sarah Henne. Henne, correct?
Correct.
Oh, whew, I got it right. Okay, my part's done. Take it away, Ro.
Thank you. You're calling in from Canada again, right?
No, I'm in the States. Oh. I'm in Washington State.
Yeah, it's close enough to Canada.
It is. I used to live in Canada. You can get some points to that. I was there for 8 years, so.
You would think, as you were just on the show last week, that I would remember things. What's that?
You had 8 of us.
There were a bunch. And you won. Yeah.
Somehow
so
we
congratulations won. To the winning team. Yay. Yeah, for Fantasy Feud.
So
and we'll
I
come
do
back and do that again. What's that, Mike?
I do want to interject. I saw your team strategy. You know, Rose, you have to slap yourself on the head with a book if you win. And it's like he'd read the question and be like, oh, I didn't win. Yeah, you can play. And then we'll just get it back once you get your 3 strikes.
It was much easier to win just by stealing it. So we're slow, but it worked.
I saw that. I was like, I see what you're doing here. I wonder if they'll figure it out. And then Rose like, you going to play or you going to pass? So, oh, we're going to play. I'm like, oh.
I was trying to give them pass vibes. It's like, you guys are like 0 for 3. You know, just pass.
But anyway, that was clever.
Horse to water and all that.
So anyway, you need to hold up your book because EL will yell at us if we don't have you do this right away. And you don't have the little sticker, but it was a Spiffbo semifinalist, correct?
It was. It's also a finalist in, I'm bad with acronyms, BBYNA or something like that.
Oh, yeah. You made a finalist for that?
Yes, I've finalists. There were 16 this year, so I don't know when I think it's like April by the time they start to announce it. But
I made it. I made it to the point where I gave them my €20. and I didn't make it any further than that. So,
I mean, it's tough because what is it? The first round's the first 2,000 words or something, I think. Yeah. And I'm like, that is tough because there is a lot of books, especially with fantasy, where it takes a lot to kind of catch people's attentions and to take off. I mean, I always love books that have really strong opening lines, opening paragraphs that really, especially if they make me laugh, like a certain one did of Mike's when I read it. I think, what did he say? It was something, it was like this really fancy line that's like, and he was an absolute blowhard. And I just laughed and like, I am in for this book. This is my kind of book. I thought it was going to be serious, and then it was that. I'm like, I love it.
The funny thing is that line, I took it to, I forget the author's name, but he's published, dozens of books at a author's convention. He's like, I have a problem with this sentence. You got to get rid of it. No one would actually say this. If you're doing first person present tense, it's only what they'd say. Get rid of this. And I was like, but I like it. So I pretty much ignored what he told me, which I'm very good at ignoring what people tell me.
I did the same thing. With my first line, I had like mixed reviews, and I'm like, I think I'm funny, and so the people who like my humor will like it, and that's all that matters.
And that's what you want. Get your tribe.
You got to find your people. Absolutely. I'm still looking for my people. Right now, they all have the same last name as me, which isn't a good, not a good demographic.
Well, if you were West Virginian, that'd be great.
Mike's comments do not reflect on me or the show. What do you have out now, Sarah?
What do I have out? This is my only one that's out. So this is book 1 in the series, which will be 7 books long. Book 2 will be out on December 5th. I'm hoping to be able to keep up with the 1 a year. It's going to be a struggle just because I'm starting up another business, but it is my hope. I would love to be, if I could write faster and get it edited faster, but everything just takes so much longer than you expect. What's
your other business?
I will be opening my book coaching business.
Nice.
So back in July, I got certified with Author Accelerator, who does book coaching. But obviously I was neck deep in revisions for book 2. So I haven't actually started. So I'm going to launch it in January. So I specialize in fantasy, obviously. And so book coaching, if I don't know if you guys know what it is, it can vary as well depending on who it is. It is about, it's like being a dev editor, but you have a stronger connection with your writers. So you can be there before they've even written a single word. And that's one of the things that I really want to do is take away the overwhelm of trying to create a fantasy series. So I have a package that I'm putting together, which pretty much runs you through everything you need for your story. So you'll go through the world building, genre, protagonist, antagonist, the character arc, and plotting. And then I'll also be offering one where you can plan out a whole series, which is actually what I did with my own book coach. I planned out the entire series for The Last Lunar Witch. And it helps you a lot to know where you're going and not just be writing and having no
I've heard that. I've heard that's a useful thing.
It is.
You said you were certified by who?
It's Author Accelerator.
Okay. And so now this is going to be, I know that's not what you came here to talk about.
That's fine.
But I'm intrigued. So if I wanted to hire you as a author coach, what am I expecting?
It depends what stage you're in. So if you came to me and you're like, I have this idea for a book, I have no idea what to do, we would get together, figure out if this is what is right for you. We would go through my course for building the book is 5 deadlines. So depending on how busy you are, it can be every week or every 2 weeks. And by the end of it, you would have everything you needed to start writing this book. You would have an idea of the whole outline of the flow, and then you could go off, do it yourself, or you can do ongoing coaching with me. So it's deadlines every 2 weeks, and then you would give me 10,000 words if that's what you have, and I'd give you feedback. So it's kind of like getting a developmental edit while you're writing. Okay. If you need to talk to someone about how well the inside outline works, you could ask Laura Huey. I did that with her. She was a practice client of mine when I was doing the course for her Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, her lit RPG. And she keeps on telling me how helpful it was. The inside outline is obviously your regular outline. So like what's happening, but then you'll say, okay, what's the scene? And then after it's the point of it. So like, why does this matter to the character? And this really helps you make sure that your scenes have a reason to be there, that it means something to the character, that something's changing. And so you can kind of see the flow, and then they lead into each other. So it's like, okay, this happens. This means this to the character. Because of that, the next scene happens. And so it's very helpful to have this solid foundation. And so you're not floundering like I have when you're trying to write this story and have no idea where you're going.
Yeah. Okay, so this question will come up. What kind of check am I writing you for this service? Kind of check?
What does that mean? What type of money do I accept?
Yes, how many zeros? Yeah.
It will be when I launch, I will be having some discounts. But my book spark, which is what I'm calling the package to create it, is $1,500 for the 5 deadlines. And there's calls with every deadline. So you'll have one-on-one with me for 90 minutes.
Okay.
And we go over everything.
This is not a quick, this isn't a get money quick scheme for you. This is actually taking a fair bit of your time.
Yep. But I love it.
Yeah, I mean, so for this particular package, how much time do you think you're spending? I mean, it sounds like you're going to spend almost as much time as the person spent writing it.
It would definitely. So if it's every 2 weeks, it means I would be getting going through their work, and that, I mean, I'm not sure how long it would take just because I haven't done it with this specific one. I would expect it would take about 2 hours for me to go over the work, give me feedback. Then it's the 90-minute call where we go everything. And then obviously a bit after that where you get the recording and you get the details of like what we talked about. So I have notes about what we talked about. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you run the risk of being very successful at that and then not having any time to write.
True. But I mean, it's probably going to make me more money than my books right now until I can get more out. So,
I mean, and if you really enjoy the book coaching thing, that's great too. But yeah, it will be a giant kind of pull on your time. So
yeah,
I guess not why everybody doesn't do it.
it takes something else as well to see the issues with people's work. And the reason I got into it was when I was started writing, I would do like feedback with other fellow authors, and they'd be like, "Oh wow, your feedback was really helpful. Like it made me understand." And I'm like, "Oh." And then I was like, okay, maybe I should become a dev editor because people keep on telling me, people keep on asking me to review their work and want to give me money for that. Why would they do that? And so I got into this whole thing. I'm like, I guess I'll go be a book coach. So I do that part of it. I also offer just regular manuscript evaluations and dev edits because sometimes people find me after they've finished their books. So I'm happy to do either. But it's fun to work with people to create worlds. So
yeah. Awesome. That's right. Now, about your world.
Yeah.
Your world. Describe to us a little bit about your world, because I understand, and Mike's getting all excited. I can see the shine on his head, that there is some chemistry, or as you call it, alchemy, involved in your book quite heavily.
Yes.
Let us know what's going on there.
Yes. Well, I can go on for hours about my world.
Okay.
So
you can go on for 1 hour about your world.
So this is an urban fantasy, but because I'm me, I have to do everything differently. So typically in an urban fantasy, you're in an urban setting, but usually it's set in our world. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I personally hate when I read an urban fantasy and like, oh, I'm walking down so-and-so street and there's this thing. I don't know any of the places in the States. So I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me. Like, just get on with the story. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make mine in my own world because then I can make stuff up and no one can hold me accountable for that. I love epic fantasy. And I'm like, well, now I'm doing it in modern settings. So this realm, I call it a realm, even though it's a world, is overseen by 3 goddesses. So you have Selene, Aaliyah, and I can't remember how to pronounce the last one because she doesn't come up very much, but it's the goddess of the moon, the goddess of the sun, and the goddess of the earth. Each of them created their own race. So the goddess of the sun created witches, gave them their solar magic. Selene, the goddess of the moon, created the shifters, and then the other goddess created nymphs, because nymphs are just fantastic, and I think they're an underutilized race. And then we have another realm which has kind of joined with this one. So that's where you get humans, Nephilim, and Arabian, who are my like demonkin, if you're like with D&D. So these guys all live together. There's a mix of technology and magic. So it's a very unique world. But my main character, Nissa, her skill with magic is creating alchemy. So she's very much thrown her into that. She has broken magic in book 1, and the only thing she can really do is alchemy. And so alchemy in my world, you use a spell array, you have runes that you put into it, and you channel your magic into the cauldron. And it takes the magical elements from all of the ingredients in there and then forms them into a cohesive potion.
Nice.
Cool.
So is that like magic that they can carry around with them, like use as needed?
Yes. And that's one of my favorite bits about, well, it'll be the entire series, but so Nissa finds herself in a bit of trouble and runs into a demon spawn one day and is like, what the hell? So she goes home and she's like, I need to create some potions to protect myself. And she is more of a support player if you play any video games. So she creates a smoke bomb. She creates a stinging nettle brew, which if you know anything about stinging nettle, it hurts a lot. So she can throw that at them. So she's very much, and then she has like a flash potion as well. So she's very much defensive in that way. But then she'll create some other potions which will come up. Book 2 doesn't have as many potions, which is kind of sad, but I hope that I can come up with some more fun ones. Oh, and there's an ooze potion. That one's fun. So she throws it and it hardens and kind of helps her stay away. But she created that one because her brother kept on trying to read her diary. And so she created that so that she could, so his hand was attached to her diary for a couple of months. So
nice. Do you like list out like the ingredients like a cookbook in your book where you say this is what's in it and cook it for this long or whatever?
I do not. I will mention some of the ingredients that are in there, which are all fantastical ones. So besides obviously stinging nettle, which is the one that I just stole from the real world because it's fun. And I have encountered, my mum used to grow stinging nettle and they really hurt. So that's why
they do, but you know, I've heard that, so my wife is English and they have stinging nettle all over the place, that it's really good for like arthritis.
If you make it into a tea?
If that, or if you just like stick your hand in it.
Oh, really?
Right? Your hand is going to hurt, right?
Oh.
But whatever is in it gets into you. And they say after a while, that's the wives' tale, right? I don't know. I don't have any stinging nettle to go jab my hand into a bunch of it. But I tell you what, I freaking would. You know, I'd give it a go. So go ahead.
Oh, I just have to nerd out for just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little. Oh no, new levels here.
Anybody,
so in my book, you know, Grami's a druid, so he does, you know, all sorts of work with plants or whatever. And in my day job, I'm a formulation chemist, so I make shampoos and lotions and whatnot. So I literally like, okay, for this lotion that Grami made, he used nettles. So we have, you know, some oil, nettle oil or whatever. And I actually went through the stuff in my lab that I have. And I was like, I'm going to make Grami's, you know, this is going to be for the eye, bags under the eyes, get rid of, and I actually made the formulation and put it up on Stability. And I didn't tell anyone at work. And they're like, this is really interesting. How'd you come up with this?
I love it.
But sadly, it failed Stability. So there'll have to be Grami's eye cream number 2 that'll hopefully pass. But
in a magic world, it will pass Stability.
But they don't understand where I come up with these ideas, and I don't tell them, like, well, clearly you've not read my book, or you would know. But yeah, that's me nerding out. I'm so happy I get to tell it. Somebody who would appreciate it.
Do you continue trying to play with that formulation to make it work?
I will.
You could be buying Mike's nettle butter for like $60 a pot here. You know,
because I actually thought about it. I was like, you know, I could buy packaging, I could make this, and I could, you know, you buy the book and you get a little bit of Grami's
nettle butter. Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know, do I want to do that? Because then I have to bring more stuff to Comic-Cons. But but I'm thinking this might be, you know, it'll definitely set me apart. I don't know any other, you know, authors who are doing this.
No, that sounds awesome. I love it.
A lot of other authors have access to a full chemistry lab.
Probably not. I make fake little potions, but that's about it. But mine is just water and food dye. So
made that little potion with Jägermeister a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, it's not really the same.
So, and the really nice thing is I transferred jobs, and now I'm the only formulation chemist for my group. So I'm in charge of the lab, and I get to order everything that I need for the lab. So yeah, I cannot wait. I need to reread my books and find out what I put in there.
I'm really interested to know if you can find a place that will sell you Eye of Newt.
I did not use Eye of Newt because there are no lizards naturally on England, and I got stupid when I'm like, I'm going to use England from 300 BC, and everything has to be natural to England at that time, except for, you know, the fantasy races.
Have you been to England in 300 BC?
No, but I can read.
How do you know there weren't lizards?
I have the interwebs.
Maybe it was just the last lizard. You got the last one. And somebody brought over on a boat.
I actually had one where I was like, the people formed up in a turtle formation, you know, when they get the shields and they put it. And then I looked, I was like, oh, hell, there's no turtles in England. They would have never used this word. So then I had to like scratch that and describe it. And I'm like,
the Romans have brought it with them?
Don't they have tortoises?
No.
Really?
Weird. So they have like, they only have like a couple different types of snakes, and they're all not venomous.
That must be nice.
But yeah, so I created a lot of work for myself that maybe, oh, there we go. The last lizard. And who's the next person who comments after that? But Timothy Wolf.
It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. It's like, lizard, Tim Wolf pops up. Hey, I'm here. How are you?
It's just waiting for it.
All right, so you've got 7-book series planned.
Yes.
Which is Now, Mike always says, when you get a 7-book series plan and you're working on book 10, but my series, I started with a 12-book plan, and it is now 5.
Oh, really?
I went the other way. Yeah, I could have made it 12, but it's like, I don't need to drag this out just for the sake of the gimmick,
Yeah.
So what as a coach now, are you a planner? Do you have everything all laid out?
I do. So I did I have to mention Andrew. Andrew was my world building book coach. So we built this whole world together. He is absolutely amazing. He has such a vast knowledge of all these different magic systems and everything. So he really helped me because I tend to make my magic systems too complicated. So we worked on all of that. And then once we had that all in place, we went over my entire plan because I had a general idea of what was going to happen, and then we worked together and pretty much planned out the real basic plot of each of the books. So I kind of knew what needed to happen and logical steps to kind of build this escalation towards what happens in book 7. So it was very much just making sure that I'm setting the stage for what needs to happen. I'm introducing all of the bad guys because there's several of them, and then progressing it along. So it's there. Things can change, but at least I know the general shape of things, I'll say. But it's great for being able to set things up oh, I can mention this, and that's not going to mean anything to anyone unless they come back and reread it after they've read book 5. And they'll be like, oh, it was there. I love that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
On a slight diversion, where are you from, Sarah?
Australia originally.
Okay. I'm going to say something that will probably make you go, ugh. You said idea. It slipped out. It was one of those things that just kind of slipped. A little Americanism.
I know it's very unfortunate. So my accent is very, very sad because I notice things that I started to say. I lived in Australia until I was 20. So since 2007, I've lived in North America. So there is a little bit. My uncle said, when I was talking to my mom on the phone one day, she's like, oh, she sounds American. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have people here who instantly know that I'm Australian. I was on the most heartbreaking thing. I was on a flight back home. I was on Qantas, which is an Australian airline. So everyone there is pretty much Australian. And I was chatting with the attendant, and he's like, oh, so where do you live in the States? And I was like, oh, I live in Washington. Oh, okay. Have you always lived there? I'm like, I'm Australian. Can you not hear my accent? What? I do not. Everyone thought that I was American. And I'm like, Americans are going to laugh when I tell you that because I do not sound American. There are definitely things which I've had to learn to say, like Z, which is the most annoying one.
Well, you just said off. You said off.
Yeah.
Americans don't say loft.
There's things that are in there. There's other things. I mean, I'll say things and then people look at me. I'm like, that's not what it is here. What is the word? I still call them trolleys instead of shopping carts and things like that. So I'll try to hold on to. I can only say aluminium though.
Well, say to be fair,
aluminum. I can't say
aluminium has the extra I in it, so you should say aluminium. That's the way it's spelled. So we just didn't want the extra I guess. I don't know.
It sounds like Australians hate letters. We shorten everything, so.
Yeah, you do.
So, I will tell you, I once had a British boss, and I swear I thought I was going to get fired when I told him, you murder the president's English. Oh, he did not like that. He did not like that at all.
It's funny. I mean, there's a lot of I was on a bus. I think it was Oakland in California. Me and my sister were just chatting, and then these two gentlemen who were also on the Greyhound bus. So you can imagine what kind of.
You were on a Greyhound bus in Oakland?
Yes.
Ooh.
It's one of our
There's your first mistake.
And they're like, oh, obviously trying to chat some ladies up because they hear we have an accent. Oh, what language do you speak in Australia? And we're like, English. I also had this very lovely Hispanic lady when I worked at the hospital she was just kind of smiling at me as I was explaining her medications. And then she was like, you're very fluent. And I'm like, thanks. It's, yeah. What could you do?
Like that. Yeah. The only way we know where anything is on a map is because we probably bombed it at one time or another. You know, that's the only reason Americans can find Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan on a map.
Yeah. So. That's how it is.
But yeah, have you ever looked at the map that has all the countries that England has not gone to war with? And there's like 6.
I was going to say probably not very many.
Look, Paraguay is like the only one in the Western.
Yeah, they got their fillers out everywhere, didn't they?
You know, it's that small island mentality. You know.
And it is hilarious, like when you actually look at how small they are and all of the places that they've gone and taken on. Like, I don't know.
Confidence in a large ship will do that. Just walk in like you're supposed to be there.
Okay. So, Sarah, I have a question for you. It's in our silly fantasy questions.
Okay.
But I think your character is set up for this one. I've asked this before, other people, but so where's it? Your main character, what's her name?
Nissa.
She wakes up in the center of an ice-covered lake. The sun is shining and it's very warm. The ice begins to crack in places. What does she do?
Have a panic attack. So funny story. Nissa drowned and died in a lake. So funny, not funny. Sorry. Yeah. So that was when she was a teenager. She was out with her friends at a sacred lake because they thought it would be fun to go ask the moon goddess to show them a vision of their soulmate. And then she ended up like 12 feet underwater, and she believes she died and then was brought back to life. So, you know, she got panic attack.
Died?
What was that?
She believes she died?
Yeah. She's not so sure. She originally she doesn't. In book 1, she's like, I think I actually died, and now I'm come back to life.
Well, then all the more reason to see where her headspace is at with Mike's question. If some cherubic balding necromancer chemist, you know, put her on a pile of ice that was cracking.
I mean, if he was a chemist, she'd probably just try to talk him to death about potions because it's her favorite thing. So they'd become buddies. Like, oh, you're a necromancer, okay?
As they're sinking into the water.
Oh, she'd be like, "Oh, this is old hat. Here's what you do."
I've done this before. No problem. I'm going to come back. I'll be okay. So, what do you do in the daytime?
Write.
Okay, so you're
be a mom.
You're one of the lucky few who get to write all day.
Well, not really all day. I became a stay-at-home mom in 2020, but that was before the pandemic. So I used to work in pharmacy at the hospital here, and childcare was pretty much going to be all my paycheck because my husband's a nurse at the hospital, and
welcome to America.
Yeah, right. So we were like, I think I'm just going to quit and I'll just look after my kid. And then the pandemic happened. So thank God I stayed at home for that. Right. Well, my poor husband had to suffer through it. But yeah, so I look after my daughter is almost 5. So she started, I can't even remember what it's called. It's not pre-K? Pre-K? I can't remember. It's different here. But it takes up the morning. So it's like, it's only 2.5 hours. So my mornings were usually when I write. So now it's kind of hickory-pickory with dealing with her, trying to get some time to write, trying to get some time to do my book coaching stuff. So
do you read your books to her at night?
No, she wouldn't want that. She reads her own books. She doesn't like when I read to her anymore. She wants to read them herself.
Oh, well, that's cool though.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah.
So where in Washington do you live?
I live in Yakima, which is a terrible place to live, but this is where my husband lives. So so pretty much if I don't know if you know much about Washington, so you pretty much have like Seattle, mountains, redness. Don't know how to politely say it. Country people. What do you expect? So, Yakima's a small. I think it's like 100,000 people here. Yeah. So I'm happy to stay in my house.
Where is that in relation to the Tri-Cities?
Tri-Cities is like
Richland,
southeast. So it's about an hour and a half away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to what I'm ultimately getting to is, are you going to go to Worldcon next year?
I thought about it. I saw that was there, and I saw that Martha Wells was going to be there, and I was like, oh. So I am considering it. I asked my sister lives over Seattle side, and I asked her, and she's like, I'll watch your daughter. Like my daughter loves her aunt, so she's like, I'll watch her. You can go do that. So it's a possibility, but I am not 100% sure.
Well, if it helps, I know someone else who will be there.
Who's that? Oh, you.
You can watch his tattoo on his head.
I do think it would be a lot of fun. So
I've talked to Palmer Pickering, and I'm going to be her helper in the library, the free library, which is going to be the free lounge, because it's not a library. You don't give it back, the book. So I'm going to be there for that, and I'm going because I have to go. Oh, there we go.
Wear like a little elf helper costume.
Well, then I won't be able to show off my tattoo, so I don't know.
I think it sounds like a blast. It sounds like when I was talking to Jay, who you had on last week, and she was saying that it's such a fantastic experience, I guess. I'm not really sure, but because it's so close, I feel like it would be probably the only time that I would ever be able to go, given my responsibilities here. So
just tell your husband you've got the kids.
While he goes and works 14 hours.
Well, don't start with that. Then lead with, I want you to take a couple days off because you've been working really, really hard. Specifically, I'd like you to take these 5 days off.
He will have to request them now. That's how much in advance they have to request them.
Get on that. And then just say, I won't be with you, so you'll have a nice quiet time at home with the daughter.
Yeah.
So I just want to, Cinna, if you're here, I know you're out west somewhere because I know you listen to books while you're riding your horses, but tell us where you're at, because I see you're going to Worldcon, so I know you're out there somewhere in the big square states. But anyway, while we're waiting on Cinna, because she might be,
driving
to Toronto now. Oh, Denver. Oh, she's mile high. Wow.
Right? That's good.
Tell us about your world. It's urban fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not set in the world. It's set in an alternate world.
Alternate. I don't know, universe, I guess. I really don't know how to. Some people say second world. Some people say alternate world. I really don't know. I have several worlds that are combined in some mystical way because I don't really know how they're combined yet. I mean, what else would you like to know? Would you like to? I can tell you more about the races.
Oh, yes.
So humans are boring. Were you going to say something, Ro?
Nope, go ahead. Carry on. Okay.
I was going to say, so humans are boring. So I really didn't want to. There are humans, but they don't feature very heavily because. So I try to make these races a lot more distinct to make them just a bit different. So like the witches take after their goddess. So they're all very sun-kissed, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. So they have darker skin colors. They have brighter hair. My character has coral-colored hair because why not? So usually it's like reds and oranges. Then we have the shifters, which we have several different types. They go around in packs and can turn into several different things. The main ones we have in this is wolf shifters. And then we have the nymphs. And so they're separated into dryad, oread, and naiad. And so you have obviously the dryads who are all about nature. They tend to be in greens and browns. You have the naiads who are the water ones, which will obviously tend to be blue. You generally don't see them as much unless there's rivers or the ocean around. And then we have the oreads, and they just created a new character that's an oread. So they're nymphs of stone and mountain. So the one that I just created, she really wants to be a baker, but usually these big hulking characters, I actually have them as genderless because they can change their gender at will. But she looks like quartz, and so people are a bit unsure around her, but she really wants to bake cookies and just have a blast.
She'd probably be really good at kneading dough, though.
Yeah. She's good at that part. Not
and
good.
She has her own pizza
finesse.
stove, right? She just right on herself. She just rolling spin on her. Yeah, it's kind of perfect for a baker.
Yeah, she's a fun character. She doesn't come up too much. She's kind of a little side character, but I just had a blast creating her. And then there is one dwarf. The dwarfs are from another realm that we don't touch on very much. He runs the sentient coffee shop, and I really love him. But then the other ones are Nephilim, which are obviously like angel born, and everyone hates them. And I think it's just hilarious because they're like super good looking and they have these massive wings, but they're really arrogant, and like all the race is just like, these guys again. And then my Arabians, who are my demonkin. So I really like tieflings. I think that they were a really cool race in D&D, and so I kind of wanted to do something like that. So they will have horns. They're usually darker reddish kind of colors. But people are a bit unsure of them just because they know that they have abilities like they can glamour, they have sway where they can kind of influence emotions. And then the other ones that I have is, I call them enhanced. So these are humans who have been exposed to a lot of magic, and they end up becoming enhanced. So they're stronger, faster, and they have a magical ability. And then my other one, which I want to mention, which isn't a specific humanoid race, is Cobalt Vulpines, which is why I'm wearing my top. This is Danica, who is a character that you might meet if you read the books. So they are, what's the best way to say it? They have lunar magic as well, but they are obviously more intelligent than your regular fox. But you won't know how intelligent until you read the book. So there you go.
So you've got merch for your books as well. That's nice.
This wasn't for it. My stepmom bought this for my birthday, and she's like, "Oh, I know you have a fox, so I bought it." So I'm just saying it's Danica.
Oh, okay.
So I did not design it.
Actually, okay, gotcha. So you have all that going on in one book?
Yeah.
And you keep it straight by
me keeping it straight up for the reader. I mean, there's a lot of characters that come up in this book. I pretty much just have one of each race that Nissa comes into contact with. I don't bog people down with the world building, even though I would love to. So it's very much just like this is how the world is, and because Nissa lives in it, she just accepts it. So there will be little bits of information for the reader, but it won't kind of inundate you with everything that's going on, and you kind of get to experience how the races interact with each other just through how Nissa sees them, because she's lived in a witch-only community, so it's kind of new for her to go and live somewhere where there's a bunch of races around.
It's kind of interesting having a fantasy, because I think fantasy, and I'm thinking, Tolkien-esque fantasy.
Yeah.
So to have a fantasy story with coffee shops and things like that is that's kind of cool in a way.
It's fun to have technology and magic together. Like,
yeah, it certainly keep the reader, give them more points of contact with being able to kind of understand and get a good visual on what's going on.
Yeah, it's because it can be hard when it is so much that's different. So I do keep a lot of stuff that's in our world. Like they have cell phones. There's some things I'll avoid. Like I'll say that they'll pay money, but I might say dollars, but I'll never say like, oh, is it cash? Is it card? Like, how does that work? So I keep some things vague, just because I don't see the point of going into the monetary system of it. But yeah, it's kind of, they can be grounded and they kind of know generally how the world is, but then there's like, oh, there's magic and there's potions and there's grumpy ovens that might eat your face if you annoy them and things like that. So,
Sarah, how many pages is your book?
This book one is only, I think it's 393 for that one. Book two is actually a little bit shorter.
Oh, see, where is Tim McKay when you need him? short books. There's no need to go over 500 pages.
Definitely. I am not a fan. And as much as I love epic fantasy, I really don't like books that drag on. So that's why I'm like, I'm not lots of info dumping and things like that. And so I try to keep the story shorter and more succinct. And there's definitely like chapters that I took out that was more just like about relationships. And it's like, man, it's not really driving the plot forward. So I took it out. So I want something that I can read in a day.
Do you find that your approach to writing a book has changed since you've taken your coaching course? Do you find yourself like kind of coaching yourself?
Definitely. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot about structure and plotting and all of that. That has helped because really when I like the epic fantasy series that I've been trying to write for like 10 years, I was very much just like, okay, I kind of know what's going on. I'm just going to write like everything that happens. And I mean, everything. Like my character needed to get, I'm like, oh, she just needs to get from here to do her job. And she's just riding on a horse. And it was like 3,000 words later and she's finally arriving. I'm like, what was I even doing there? Like, why? We didn't need to see that. So now I'm very good with knowing like when to chop it off, when to start it up, like when the reader doesn't need to see like the transitions that are going on.
It's kind of weird because you have some people like, I think it's Philip Pullman, who said, get rid of the shoe leather, right? They don't need to see you traveling.
Yeah.
Then if you sit there and kind of graph The Hobbit, it's nothing but a big long walk, right? They leave Hobbiton, they go to Bree. In the middle of the walk, they have a little adventure. They're in Bree, they go to Weathertop, where they have a little adventure, right? They go from Weathertop to wherever the hell they go next, right?
Yeah.
It's just one big long walk with interspersing bits of action between the points. So who do you listen to?
It depends what type of story you're writing. Because if you are writing an action adventure where they're traveling, then you probably need to have it in there. I mean, when you do traveling, you can do it well. But for a lot of the time when there's a traveling in books, I tend not to pick them up just because I'm like, they generally bore me. Then again, like I enjoyed The Hobbit. Maybe it was because I was watching it as a movie and not reading it.
Now, did you watch the movie that came out a few years ago?
Yes.
That horrible piece of shit? You watched that?
I did.
Go back a little further.
And the animated one?
Yes. The animated stroboscope one.
I think I have seen that when I was younger. I know that I went to see The Hobbit. They put on I would say a puppet show, but it was like big puppets. Like it was a big theater. But I really didn't remember it because I was very young, probably like 6 or 7. So no. It was still light. It was okay. It definitely wasn't as enjoyable as his version of Lord of the Rings. So but what can you do?
No, Lord of the Rings was much better.
Yeah.
Sorry, I won't get into that again.
Okay, bro, it's time for.
What's that? Yeah. You gonna put her on a frozen lake again?
We'll see.
Pick the next place that she dies.
So, Nissa, correct? I remember the name. Ooh, look at that. Memory was working today. And what is your favorite color?
Both cells are firing.
Blue.
Blue? Excellent. So, have you seen the Bald Dome before?
Yes.
Action? So, you know what's coming up.
Yes, and I already have issues.
Thomas Covenant. I remember reading that, and I've read it a couple of times. I remember loving it, but I don't remember a lot about it. I'm going to have to read it again. Yes, Henne, Thomas Covenant series was fantastic.
I liked the first trilogy. I did not like the second. I didn't finish the second trilogy. But yes, Thomas. Anyway, so Nissa has been transported to number 17. Ooh, a hidden valley inhabited by reclusive druids.
Oh.
She has a fizzy blue potion. And now, do you want the common item or do you want an actual weapon?
She would go for a common item. She is not a fighter. She does not like to kill
she's
people.
In luck because she gets a blacksmith's hammer.
She doesn't know what to do with that.
And a beetle song stuck in her head. Thank you.
And it would have been a mace had she gone with a weapon. So now, instead of facing, a swarm of giant spiders,
Oh.
she gets to face a pack of 5 gray wolves.
Ooh.
So in
That's
this,
better.
Yeah, I'll take wolves over spiders.
wolves are not poisonous, at least. The hidden valley inhabited by reclusive druids who may or may not show up in this encounter. There's a pack of 5 gray wolves. She has a fizzy blue potion and a blacksmith's hammer, which she found. Which, if the druids find her with a blacksmith's hammer, they'll probably ostracize her or maybe kick her out because, metal. But
that's not all druids. It's just your druids.
Well, what else is there, Ro? This is what I know. So that is your prompt. What happens now?
Well, first I need you to explain to me why Nissa wouldn't know what the potion is. Did she obviously not craft it? Because if she crafted it,
did not craft it.
Okay. Does she have the items that she would usually have at her disposal?
The rules of your world hold sway.
Okay. Nissa runs around with a belt and a bag full of potions, so she is well equipped. She would also have her conduit, which can help her to cast spells, which she can flick it out and it turns into a stave. But first, she would probably cast her astral shield, which can block physical and magical attacks. And then she would turn to her familiar, Danica, and go, "What the hell is going on?"
What's her familiar?
Yeah.
Her familiar is called Danica.
Yeah, but the fox.
Yes, that's the fox.
Okay.
Cobalt Vulpine. Yes. And she would ask what's going on, see if Danica could communicate to them. Nissa would probably try to reach out with her awareness, which is like a magical awareness, to see if these wolves were magical at all. Wondering if they are actually shifters. If this was her world, they might be shifters. Otherwise, if nothing is working, she would probably use her shield, try to make a bubble and move around. She might send Danica out to see if she can go and find these druids. I'm gathering she's here to see the druids. I don't know why else she would be in a hidden valley by herself. So she would probably be trying just to sneak around. She does not like to kill things, especially. Well, I don't know. Did you say the wolves were aggressive or they're just there?
It's your story.
Think of this in these terms. It would be like if she was on a Greyhound bus in Oakland.
She encounters 5 gray wolves.
Yeah.
Like I said, we used to do it like almost gladiatorial, and you have to fight. And then people were like, "But my character doesn't fight." So we're like, you know what? Better yet, tell us a story. Tell us a little bit about your character without you giving away spoilers from your book.
Well, she would definitely try to see if she could just get around them. If they haven't noticed her, which is probably unlikely. And then she would probably try to use some of her potions, like I mentioned. So she'd probably try and use a smoke bomb and see if there was a place, if Danica could scout to see somewhere where she could run. She's most likely wanting to find these druids, and then she probably has a suspicion that these wolves might actually have something to do with the druids. So she definitely wouldn't want to harm them. She would have no idea about the blacksmith hammer, I will say, though. So she would probably, I don't even know why she had it. Probably just picked it up. Like, someone's littering. Let's just pick it up. Maybe someone lost it. She wouldn't really understand that. So it would be very much her trying to sneak by. If she couldn't sneak by, it would be using a flash potion maybe to blind them so that she could run. She doesn't have any which make noise, which might be something that she needs to reconsider.
She has a blue one in her hand that she doesn't know what it does. No,
she probably wouldn't. If she found a random potion, and then again, she probably wouldn't drink it because she didn't craft it. She's drinking some potions she probably shouldn't have, but she made them herself.
She could throw it at the wolves.
She might throw them at the wolves, but again, she doesn't know what it does, and she wouldn't want to hurt them. There's only a few things that she will attack enough to possibly kill them, and that would be very aggressive demon spawn, perhaps. No, she'd just throw the ooze at them and then run away. But yeah, her trick would definitely be to sneak around them, get Danica. Maybe Danica could go off and see if she could find the druids because she's pretty good at tracking, and then try to get to safety, and then blunder through and be like, "Hey, I have this hammer. Would you guys like it?" And then they'd probably get angry at her. She's very sweet and innocent. So
so now she's facing 3 druids
who are angry at her.
Right.
And well, they'd have to tell her, and they'd be like, "We don't want them." I'm like, "Okay, I'll make it go away." And then
one of them turns into an owl.
One owl, most
then
likely.
she'd go, "Hi, that's cool. I wish I could do that." And then she would go, "Okay, you guys don't want this hammer." She would put it on the ground. She would get her other vial out and pour it over it, which is acidic, and it would make it melt. And then hopefully they'd be friends.
Oh, and poison the ground. Great.
Yeah.
Nice. Just throw some salt in there too.
It was made from natural ingredients. It'd be fine.
Okay. Would you like to know what the potion was?
Yes.
Which you did not use? It was a potion of dexterity.
Yeah, she's not very dexterous. So
it would have granted the drinker the ability to dodge attacks for 5 minutes.
Yeah, she had her shield. She would have been fine.
So yeah.
I'm waiting for you to make up some interesting potions, Mike.
Well,
it's a potion of peanut butter and fluff sandwiches.
Fluffernutter sandwich. Okay, I tell you what. This is what ChatGPT and I were able to come up with. Mostly ChatGPT. So if you want,
I have faith in you.
So if anyone in the comments would like to come up with new potion ideas, we can always refurbish this whole because we've gone through a lot of them.
Yeah. We'll do that.
So
send us your weirdest, most outlandish ideas for weapons, potions, and scenarios. Yes, we've reached that point in our show where we aren't even doing any work now. We're just
just give it to us. Crowdsourcing.
It turns you into a dinosaur. It turns you into a dinosaur. It turns the next nearest thing into a griffin. See which one you jump on.
Hey, Tim did not say lizard, so there baby steps here.
That's
so.
Tell us more about sorry, Mike. Tell us more about your next book that's coming out soon.
So, well, I'll caveat. So, in book 1, Mr. obviously comes up against some bad people, and there's obviously a climax in the book, which, because it's an action book, there are some bad things that happen. She obviously survives, as she is on the cover of book 2. So that's not a spoiler. But book 2, it took a turn when I actually started writing it, because I was just like, oh, okay. Like book 1, like she goes and she makes potions and she works at a sentient coffee shop. And so there's lots of like cozy moments, but then there's obviously higher stakes to do with demon spawns and bad people. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to open book 2. I'm like, I'll just write out a scene where she's running and we won't know what's going on, but it will just be one of the shifters is chasing her to train her in magic. And then, so I was just writing this out in a sprint, and then she turns the corner and then she comes face to face with the enemy from book 1 and has a bit of a breakdown. That person isn't actually there, but it was just like, oh, well, that took a bit of a turn. And so book 2 is actually about her struggles with PTSD from book 1, which I think is something that a lot of books don't go into. Like, terrible things happen to our characters and they just
shrug and
and so I was like, I think I want to lean into this more. And so it's a lot about facing your fears, overcoming some of the trauma that you've been through, her having to understand that she isn't alone. Because there's a lot of found family in this entire series. So it's definitely about her needing to overcome that. This book, obviously, it's a little bit darker just because she's dealing with those struggles. And then there's some ritualistic murders going on. So it's a little bit of a change, but it was a subject that I really wanted to talk about.
Ritualistic murder?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're fun. No.
So that happy.
What was funny is this, when I first wrote book 1, it was actually meant to be a cozy book, and then I accidentally put in kidnapping and murder. So I realized that I'm not good at writing cozy, but I'm good at writing action. I do try to keep the violence and the language low than what I usually do, just because I feel like that's the tone that I'm setting, with like the happier, more cozy scenes. But yeah, book 2 obviously goes a little bit darker just because she's working through these issues. But I think it's something that we need to talk about. We need to understand. I know that I had some beta readers who were a little frustrated with Nissa, because they didn't understand her ability or her lack of communication with other people. But then I had one beta reader who I actually didn't realize was actually a veteran who has a lot of friends suffering through PTSD. And he made me very sure that I was doing the right thing, because he was like, yep, I know that's signature of PTSD. Yep, that you're spot on. So some people might get frustrated if they don't understand what people are going through. But I think hopefully it comes off as a good representation. He absolutely loved the book. He read it in one day. So I'm very, very hopeful that other people will enjoy it too.
I have a question, because you brought this term up a couple times and you need to explain it to me.
Okay.
What exactly is a sentient coffee shop?
Is the coffee sentient, or the customer sentient? What?
The building's sentient. This is something Nissa actually discovers. She doesn't realize it at first, but it has some magic. It can do some things. It can't communicate except by kind of moving things around. It's a very, very outspoken sentient coffee shop. I do not reveal very much about it, but obviously I know the lore of this coffee shop.
So is it called something cool, like the curmudgeonly cup or something like that?
No, it's called Divine Coffee. Okay. It's just a blast. I don't know why I made it sentient, and I'm really glad I did, because it was just really fun to write. And it's just kind of this fun little aside that I can have when there's like these darker moments. And then it's like the coffee shop is like rattling pans because Nissa isn't baking things fast enough. And it laughs, and like the cups jingle, and that's the sound of it laughing, and little things like that. So
do you have to pull yourself back from using a device like that for serious plot-driven things? It's like, oh, I need this widget. Where am I going to do it? Oh, the coffee shop. Yeah, somebody get over here or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I wouldn't want I used to work at Starbucks. I would not want it to be sentient. It wasn't something that I had intentionally done. It was just because originally, again, when I originally wrote this book, it was just Nissa, who was an alchemist, and she went and got a job at the coffee shop because she needed money, and accidentally baked some magical cookies. And it was just meant to be her working at this coffee shop. And so it was just kind of there. But now I do try to balance it. I want to have these scenes where it's, well, still driving the plot forward, but it's more cozy. It's more about relationships or something funny that's going on.
So I have a follow-up question now.
Yes.
These magical cookies, did they make you crave Doritos?
She's not exactly sure what the cookies do at first. They just taste magical, which what does magic taste like? But they like it. I was originally in book 2, there was a scene where she kind of went into it and was trying to make some specific ones. But again, it was just slowing down the plot. So that ended up going, but it might just kind of be bonus scenes. But she's going to be making some coming up, which she learned that she can brew coffee that has some extra effects. So the one she accidentally made gives someone a bit of extra confidence because they were going to a job interview. So
it's called Irish coffee.
There really was one. Damn.
Is there going to be a cookbook associated with this series?
Somebody told me I should, and then I ended up. Oh, it was my line editor for book 1, and she's like, "Oh, if you ever have a special edition, you should do it." And I ended up writing one of the recipes. There's a recipe I make that's a baked cheesecake. And I ended up writing that up, but as if Nissa was writing it to it. So it was like, oh, add a dash of magic, but if you don't have that, store-bought's fine, and things like that. Or, oh, you can use like these berries which have this property, but if you don't have that, you can just use any kind of jam. So maybe one day I'll get that out there. I was kind of just having fun writing that up. So
that sounds like a Kickstarter extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the kind of things, though, that make books so appealing to people. Because, I mean, let's face it, a lot of what made Harry Potter so lovable for most people was all of that kind of stuff, right? The butterbeer and the this and the that. It kind of just gave you something that's like, oh yeah, that sounds really nice. Even the name, it sounds warm and sweet, and so yeah, good on you. I think that's something that not enough people do. Myself included, and I'll include Mike here as well.
Yeah. Audio plans. I do. That is going to be my next task after book 2 gets out. I have a narrator I would like. I don't know how free she is, but I do want to find it. And I don't know how long they take. They probably take forever though. So it might be.
Have you thought about doing it yourself?
Oh God, no.
Why not?
I don't want to
you have to understand how you sound to an American audience.
Oh,
you don't want to listen to me.
You would be absolutely fine for it.
I know. I do not want to do that. I hate listening to myself.
Yeah, you do, but American audiences love British and Australian accents.
But I don't sound Australian anymore. I'm
basically, you're not. It's like the difference between an R and a hard R, right? Just the sound. You don't have that really kind of high-pitched kind of, oi, mate.
The twang. I never had the twang.
You have a very subdued Australian, which is very pleasant to listen to.
I'm from Adelaide, so Adelaide was settled by free settlers, not convicts. So the rest of the country hates Adelaide because we say things like dance, and they'll say dance. And so they have that. They have that twang. And I can't listen to like Australian news reporters anymore because I can't take them seriously. I'm like, my God, we sound like that. Who wants to listen to Australians?
How do you survive in the United States? We all sound like that.
You can sound normal.
Dance.
Dance. Yeah. No, I do not want to. I do not want to put the time in. I have other things. I want to do my book coaching. So yeah, I definitely will be getting a narrator. I'm hoping to get a male and a female, because I'm not a fan of most of the time I find like female narrators don't do a very good male voice, male narrators don't do a very good female voice. There are exceptions, but they probably cost way too much money, and I can't afford that. So it's definitely something I would love to get. But yeah, it will probably be on my goals for next year. No idea how long it will take to come out though. So.
All right. Well, cool. Anybody in the comments have any last minute questions real quick? And if not, Mike, when are we meeting again?
We are meeting Saturday at 1 p.m.
Saturday. Okay.
Alex Robbins, he lives in France. He's written a book about his take on Greek mythology. The first book is Panacea, I think. I don't know. I bought the book, so I thought it looked really cool. And when I was like, wonder what he writes. And I'm like, thank you, Tim. And I'm like, oh, I've already bought that book, because I normally buy most of the ebooks of people we interview. And I was like, oh, I already have that. I already have the second book, so I'm confident I'll like the first one.
I'm a bad host. I don't normally do that. But to be fair, I have, other people here. I don't have, sex dolls behind me and weapons on the wall and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm very good at buying books. Reading them, I mean, I have to read one a month now because I put in my newsletter I'd like do a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh hell, the month's almost up. I have to finish a book.
Audiobooks, it is the way to go.
Always.
Even audiobooks, they take so long, and I find that I'm not in the car that much anymore. I'm usually listening to like podcasts and things, so I'll do an audiobook for 30 to 60 minutes at a time. It will still take me months to go through a book.
Oh, I have so much housework, so it's like I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing the washing, I'm vacuuming. I've got my headphones in, so it's the
My
other
wife's
way.
the same way. I yell to her something, and she's got both her damn AirPods in. She's listening to a book all the time. I think it's because she doesn't want to hear me, but
Maybe.
that's fair. So let it go.
Okay, well, Sarah, hopefully I see you at Worldcon next year.
Yep.
Are you going to get a head tattoo also?
No. I might wear my dragon horns. That's about it. Sorry.
Well, okay, tiefling. That makes sense.
Holy shit.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I couldn't read 232 comic books in a year, much less like actual books.
So,
all right. So I hope you've read Mike and mine.
I believe I sent her, or she.
Audiobooks. No, you have audiobooks. I know. So.
Yeah. I think I sent her Becoming Druid. Maybe she bought it. I don't know. But either way, I don't think she said anything about it. So I don't know if that means she didn't like it or not. But that's okay. We don't need to know.
She DNF'd your audiobook.
There we go. Next month.
All right.
Sure. That's what they all say.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope you can be here at 1 o'clock on Saturday. And thank you, Sarah, for joining us from the great state of Washington. Have fun out there in Yakima.
I will.